North is holding Nigeria back. Is VDM right?
The North are the people stopping Nigeria from becoming a better country. Do you understand? It is the North. The day the North get liberated, Nigeria will be liberated.
Recently, VDM made a statement that the North is holding Nigeria back. And whether you agree or disagree, it is a claim that is worth examining through history rather than emotions. If you are from the North, you probably feel offended by what VDM said. But let's dive straight into it. Before the 1914 amalgamation, the area now known as Nigeria was administered as two separate British regions, that is the Northern and the Southern Protectorates. In 1914, the British merged these two territories into one country called Nigeria. But to understand Nigeria today, you first have to understand what these two regions look like before becoming one. The Northern Protectorate was predominantly Muslim and heavily influenced by the legacy of the Sokoto Caliphate. The Southern Protectorate, on the other hand, was far more diverse, with Christian, Muslim, indigenous, traditional communities living alongside one another and peacefully. More importantly, both regions developed under different systems of governance. In the North, British ruled entirely through the existing emirates using the indirect rule, that is autocracy. The emir already exercised enormous authority before the British came. And rather than dismantling that indirect rule structure, the British strengthened it, and it was easier and cheaper to govern through traditional rulers. To preserve this arrangement, Christian missionaries' activities and Western education were heavily restricted in the North. In contrast, Southern Nigeria evolved differently. Although the British colonial government remained authoritarian, they never enjoyed the same level of uncontested control they had in the North. Western education was expanding rapidly in the South. Missionary schools flourished. An education class of lawyers, journalists, doctors, and civil servants emerged. Lagos became home to West Africa's most influential newspaper, and their editors openly criticized the colonial policies and demanded constitutional reform. You should understand that they were well educated. By 1950s, Chief Obafemi Awolowo government established the first television station in Africa, in the Western Nigeria, reflecting that the region is growing, investing in education, media, and modernization. By the time of its independence, the British had been merging two different political realities for decades: autocracy and bureaucracy. One region had largely preserved traditional authority under indirect rule. The other had developed a growing educated elite that increasingly challenged colonial authority through press, through courts, and political organization. They are well informed. That historical difference will continue to shape Nigeria long after independence. When Nigeria gained independence in 1960, Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa became Prime Minister, while Nnamdi Azikiwe served as the Governor General and later became the President. But there was another issue that quickly became one of Nigeria's biggest political battles: population. Under Nigeria's political system, population influenced parliamentary representation, constituency allocation, and political influence. In other words, population in Nigeria means power. The 1953 census estimated Nigeria population as about 19.9 million people. The northern region accounted for roughly 55% of the total population, and the southern region accounted for about 45%. However, after independence, Nigeria conducted another national census in 1962. The published figures suggested that the southern region had become more populous than the north. These results immediately became politically explosive. Serious allegations of manipulation emerged from different parts of the country. The federal government eventually cancelled the census, arguing it lacked credibility. People argue that it's because they want power to retain in the north. That is why it was cancelled. So a fresh census was conducted in 1963, just in the space of 1 year. By this time, the figure restored the northern region to the clear majority. And in the space of 1 year, over 5 million was added to the northern population. And again, political opposition, regional leaders, and many historians question the credibility of that result. Whether the figures were accurate or manipulated is still debated. What is not debated is that the census figures were viewed by the political elites across Nigeria as source of political power because representation and influence depended heavily on population. Fast forward to today, Northern Nigeria continues to record some of the country's highest poverty rates, lowest literacy rates, and the largest number of out-of-school children. These challenges did not appear overnight. Many historians trace part of them to colonial policy that restricted Western education in large part of the North for decades. This educational disadvantage had its consequences. Lower educational attainments can make communities more vulnerable to poverty, unemployment, and manipulation by political or religious extremists. This does not mean the Northern Nigeria are naturally opposed to education. No, it's far from it. Millions of Northerners value education, and countless of Northern scholars, professors, and reformers has contributed to Nigeria's development. However, extremist groups such as Boko Haram were able to exploit areas suffering from weak education, poverty, poor governance, and state neglect. Their rise cannot simply be explained by religion or culture alone, but those underlying conditions made recruitment easy. So when people say the North is holding Nigeria back, perhaps the statement oversimplifies a far more complicated reality. Maybe the better question is, as decades of poor governance, educational neglect, and elite politics in part of the Northern Nigeria slowed the country's overall development. Considering the North's population and political influence, can Nigeria truly move forward if millions of children remain out of school, poverty remains widespread, and political elites continue to prioritize power over long-term development? Perhaps the issue is not ordinary Northerners. Perhaps the issue is the political class, North and South alike, but especially those who have governed that region without investing enough in education, healthcare, economic opportunities, and human development. History helps explain how we got here. Whether Nigerian change course depends on the choices its leader make. So, if VDM said the North is holding Nigeria back, I don't think he is totally wrong. But then, what do you guys think?
Nigeria holds a troubling record of over 18 million out-of-school children, making it the highest in the world. This crisis is most severe in northern Nigeria.
And don't forget to like and subscribe.